Our guest today is the Chief Executive Officer of the Metropolitan Pier and Exposition Authority, MPEA. Under his leadership, and in accordance with the Illinois General Assembly's reform legislation of 2010, the MPEA enacted historic measures to ensure the economic vitality of McCormick Place and Navy Pier. He served as chairman of the Regional Transportation Authority from 2005 to 2010. Our guest today earned his Bachelor of Science degree from Illinois College and his law degree from the University of Chicago. He lives in Chicago with his wife, Veronica Lynch. Veronica, where are you? Give her a round of applause, Veronica. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Reilly. Jim?
Thank you, Jay. Good afternoon. My name is Jim Reilly, and I approve this message. Unfortunately, nobody gave $100 million to my PAC, so I can only say that once. I formed a PAC. I said I started 100 million, and I said, well, okay, only 10 million, 1,000, nothing, nada. But all is not lost. At the end of these speeches, they give you a book that's the history of the club, and maybe I can sell that for a couple bucks. We'll try anyway. As finally we're approaching, at least weather allowing, the end of a long, and many would say dispiriting campaign. Many people express strong doubt that in this extremely partisan environment, government can function at all, at least if you believe the government's role is to actually solve problems. Kind of a quaint belief, but some people still hold to that, and many people in this room. But I can tell you, based on personal experience with a major crisis facing Chicago and Illinois, there are reasons to be optimistic. Today, I want to highlight a situation in which government, business, and labor leaders, people with strong and often conflicting views, did come together to solve a problem that, left untouched, could have devastated our local economy. And I want to talk about how we build on that achievement to further strengthen one of our most powerful economic drivers. The situation in the winter of 2009 and the spring of 2010 in the convention and trade show business, long a pillar of the Chicago economy, was dire. The Metropolitan Pier and Exposition Authority was in full crisis mode, finding itself the subject of high-profile news stories and editorials on a regular basis, and not the kind of stories you pitch. The MPEA was in the spotlight in a way that it had never experienced before. While the issue had been brewing for some time, it came to a head when the two major trade shows, the Healthcare Information and Management Systems Society, known as HIMSS, and the International Plastics Showcase pulled out of Chicago, citing excessive costs and work rules. And even worse, the trade shows that had formed the core of McCormick Place's business, and therefore of Chicago's business, for decades, restaurant, manufacturing technology, PAC Expo, Print, Graph Expo, American College of Surgeons, Radiology, and others, formed a group to press hard for reforms. Without reforms, they said, they would have to move their shows to other venues. Suddenly, 66,000 jobs were at risk in the midst of the Great Recession that was packing a punch not only in Chicago, but across the nation. In addition, MPEA was experiencing financial difficulties that became a drain on state sales tax dollars. Consider the impact of losing a $10 billion industry in the midst of the recession. Understanding the enormity of the challenge and the consequences of failure, leaders from the city, state, trade show industry, labor, as well as legislative leadership from both parties, quickly realized that bold and immediate action was needed. They committed to working together to solve the problem, and did so without wasting a lot of time taking jabs at each other or worrying overmuch about the next election cycle. The result was that by October of 2011, just 1 year ago, agreement was reached and enacted after 18 months of tough debate, litigation, and intense negotiations. And they were intense sometimes. One of my most colorful memories, anyway, is sitting in the Speaker's office late and moderately late one evening with some of his staff, and I believe the Senate President was there too. And one of the labor leaders, who shall go nameless, called in, and Mike told, as we were on the speakerphone, so Mike told him, who all was in the room, as you normally do. And the guy started in on this tirade about how Reilly, that SOB, and so Mike stopped and said, oh, wait a minute, maybe you didn't hear me. He's sitting right here. And the guy didn't miss a beat. I said B-S-O-B. But all is well in the end. Much of the public conversation and media coverage, understandably, has dealt with the long-standing issue of work rule changes, especially the historic Exhibitor Bill of Rights that allows exhibitors to do their own work. But there have been many other equally important reforms, and I don't want to miss the opportunity with this audience of opinion leaders to make sure that we take stock of all that has been accomplished to fuel this tremendous economic engine. To hit the key points for you, costs of food and electrical service at McCormick Place were slashed. A private management company, SMG, was brought in to run the center. Navy Pier was leased to a private not-for-profit, Navy Pier, Inc., to lead the reimagining and redevelopment of the most popular attraction in Illinois. As a result of these changes, the number of employees in the MPEA corporate office was reduced from 125 to 25, freeing up money to reduce costs and provide better service at McCormick Place. The marketing arm of McCormick Place and of Chicago, the Convention and Tourism Bureau, now known as Choose Chicago, was completely revamped with a new board, new management under Don Welch's leadership, and a larger marketing budget. And the Bureau merged with other agencies, providing Chicago with a single voice for marketing and sales. And with the legislative authorization, MPEA restructured its debt to end the drain on the state sales tax. And that refunding also allowed MPEA to begin construction of the long-awaited second tower of the Hyatt Regency McCormick Place, which will open in June. This hotel expansion will provide much-needed additional hotel rooms close to the center and free up capital that MPA can invest in its facilities, while further ensuring that McCormick Place will continue to operate without a subsidy. All that in 1 year, quite a year. The reforms agreed to and announced in October of 2011 were followed in the spring of 2012 with an agreement between the electricians, IBE Local 134, and the stagehands, IATSE Local 2, that opens the door to shows that want to use the stagehands for production work to come to Chicago. The leaders of those two locals, Terry Allen of the electricians and Craig Carlson of the stagehands, deserve special credit for this agreement because it was totally voluntary. There wasn't any legislative threat hanging over them. They did it because it was the right thing for Chicago and the right thing for the trade show and convention industry. And the results have been nothing short of dramatic. Show managers are voting with their feet, rebooking shows that had left or threatened to leave, and by booking new shows. As I mentioned earlier, the departure of hymns had been one of the departures bringing the crisis to a head. But the show is back. The show is back. It will be returning to Chicago, citing reports from that their exhibitors have heard from colleagues about how smoothly things are going after the reforms were put in place. All of, and I want to say that all of, every single show that was threatening to leave has rebooked with restaurant and manufacturing technology committing to Chicago through 2011. All told, this represents nearly $4 billion of direct spending in Chicago, an amount multiplied many times over if one were to consider the money that now will be available to cab drivers, hotel workers, restaurant workers, McCormick Place labor. All will have money to spend, which goes into the local economy, further contributing to that economy. And 45 new shows with total direct spending of another $1 billion have booked for a grand total of $5 billion. again, all in 1 year. And these shows are hitting record attendance numbers while we're hosting their shows in Chicago. The city and the region owe a debt of gratitude to those who brought this about, often at big and unpredictable political risk to themselves. I've been in government. It's easy to say, go do that, but of course you have to consider the risks that are involved too. Two mayors actually, Mayor Daley and then Mayor Emanuel, Governor Quinn, Speaker Madigan, Senate President Cowerton, House Republican Leader Tom Cross, and Senate Republican Leader Christine Rodano. Jorge Ramirez, President of the Chicago Federation of Labor, and his labor colleagues, John Coley of the Teamsters, Frank Libby of the Carpenters, Tony DeGrotto of the Decorators, Rob Fulton from the Riggers, Terry Allen of the Electricians, and Craig Carlson representing the stagehands. David Messina is MPEA chairman and the members of the interim board that put in place these reforms and stuck with them in some very difficult times. MPEA Chair Jack Greenberg and his colleagues on the new board, who are continuing full speed ahead in a process of continuous improvement, and David Costin and all of the employees at McCormick Place who had to work through a year at warp speed. I want to come back to the labor leaders for just a moment. They deserve a special thanks. Keep in mind that the people who maybe had their income short-term lowered in order for the greater good in the long term, keep in mind that those are the people who elect labor leaders. It takes real courage, especially in this kind of economy, to make short-term sacrifices, even ones critically needed to promote a brighter future, especially when your own job and your own career may be on the line. It is not just the labor leaders who have come through. The workers on the show floor, in addition to following the new work rules, have a whole new attitude. Any hassle factor that existed before is gone. Today, McCormick Place and labor are willing partners, dedicated to common sense changes that lead to growth of Chicago's vital convention and trade show industry. My friends, I'm happy to report to you today that when it comes to the McCormick Place workforce issues that for so long have been a major impediment to retaining and growing conventions and trade shows, we are done. We've made all the changes that need to be made. Our union workforce, which has always been better and more highly skilled than that in any other trade show city. In fact, Orlando, as an example, often has to import 200 or 300 workers from Chicago because they don't have a large enough skilled workforce to deal with a major show. That's always been good labor. It's just a matter of work rules in the past. McCormick is not only bigger than any of our competitors, but it is far and away the most attractive, convenient trade show venue in the country. And now our work rules are as good as any in the country, and our price structure is aligned with those of our competitive cities. We asked, and labor responded. So let me repeat, when it comes to workforce reforms, workplace reforms, we are done. So what's next in carrying out our core mission of developing and expanding the convention and trade show business in Chicago to create even more jobs and economic activity throughout the region? We're now training our sites on 3 vital targets, 3 areas of improvement moving forward. More hotel rooms close to the McCormick Center, a new general session space significantly larger than the 4,200-seat Airy Crown for business like Microsoft, a livelier neighborhood around McCormick Place to attract more convention goers, but also visitors from the near south side and the broader metro region. Let's take a look at these priorities. Hotel rooms. One-on-one, McCormick Place competes just fine with the Las Vegas Convention Center. But what Las Vegas has that we don't have is the mega hotel complex where 3,000 people can meet, eat, be entertained, and sleep without ever going outside. Orlando used to have the same problem we have, that there weren't many hotel rooms right around within walking distance. But that's no longer the case, as the Peabody and other properties are now right next door. Adding hotel rooms in the immediate area would not in any way displace the major downtown and greater North Michigan Avenue properties. These will always provide the great bulk of rooms for our for our shows. But additional hotels around McCormick would allow us to book business that we simply can't otherwise book, business that bypasses Chicago. And we can't afford in this economy to let business bypass Chicago. A new, larger general session space. It may seem hard to believe, given that we have the largest trade show floors in the business, but there is business that bypasses Chicago because we do not have the general session space equal to the existing demand. And again, we can't let business bypass Chicago if we can help it. A livelier neighborhood. We desperately need a more vibrant neighborhood, more restaurants with entertainment, more gathering spots. While the adjoining near South Side had a tremendous boom in middle and upper income housing prior to the collapse of the housing bubble, the restaurant and nightlife scene did not keep pace. So there's not a lot to do around McCormick Place in the evening for convention goers or for the broader community. Now that the problems that we've had that have held us back are settled, we need to think holistically about our campus, fill any gaps that we may have that our customers and potential customers want and need, and develop the entire McCormick Place experience to match the high quality of our trade show halls, and do all of this in a way that is self-reinforcing, in a way that further develops the local economy. So we need investment, public and private, at the very least through public-private partnerships to create an exciting nightlife, dining, entertainment, and hotel options right around McCormick Place. This is a key component in the growth of our convention and trade show business, building in part on the investments, the public investments for the sake of our future growth. Just for a minute, I'd like to take a look at the McCormick Place business model for a moment and put it in context vis-a-vis our major competitors. Public investment is a major component of any major convention and trade show destination in the United States. That's because of the powerful economic benefits generated by this industry: jobs, visitor spending, tax revenue. For this reason, McCormick Place, just like our competitors in other cities, is a loss leader. Its function, its purpose in the area economy is to bring business that feeds the hotels, the restaurants, and the transportation business. In fact, the center and even with our greatly reduced overhead, loses something like $37 million a year. Our competitors lose money in the same way, actually, because they have higher overhead. They lose more money than we do. But the difference, and it's a big one, is that our competitors have public operating subsidies. McCormick Place does not. Let me repeat that. McCormick Place does not receive operating subsidies. Revenue was made available on a short-term basis, but only to make up for the mandated cuts in the prices charged for food and electrical service while we build the second tower of the hotel, which will take up the slack when it opens next June. Of course, tourism-related taxes support the long-term MPEA debt, which makes our facilities possible, something we much appreciate. But again, there's no annual operating subsidy, as is the case with our major competitors, to help close that loss gap. Now, it may come to you as a surprise, but I'm not complaining. Truth be told, over the years, some have bemoaned the lack of a subsidy, but my colleagues and I at the center and in MPEA see it as a challenge to be more businesslike and entrepreneurial. In the mid-90s, we built the Hyatt Regency McCormick Place, whose profit goes to offset some of the loss at McCormick Place. Same goes for the Energy Center, another profit-making enterprise owned by MPEA. And as we speak, we're exploring developing the lower levels of the original McCormick Place building, the Lakeside Center, as a data storage center to bolster our bottom line. At the same time, we would, of course, preserve and enhance the upper floor, which is still a vital and much used part of our campus. The lack of an operating subsidy, in my judgment, is a good thing, forcing fiscal discipline, much like that experienced by a private company. When my team looks at the bottom line, they have just as much riding as any business in this room has. It's not to make a profit, but it is to make sure that we operate at a break-even point. An important point, I think, to stress. Privatizing the management of McCormick Place while leasing Navy Pier to a not-for-profit and drastically shrinking the corporate office and overhead exemplifies a model that I believe governments are going to have to adopt going forward. Government is going to need to stick more and more to its core functions while harnessing the power of the private sector to do what it does best. Navy Pier, under the leadership of Navy Pier Inc., under the leadership of Marilyn Gardner, President and CEO, and her team, is following the same philosophy of concentrating on its core mission while reducing headcount and outsourcing where it makes sense, all the while providing better service. And I might add, in the very near future, NPI will unveil a sweeping reimagining of the pier, which, unless I miss my guess, will take your breath away. It's a concept that's at the very core of the public-private partnership. You see it in Mayor Emanuel's infrastructure trust and many initiatives that Governor Quinn has proposed. And you're going to see this concept continue to grow and evolve, given how the Great Recession has reshaped our economy and we finance government. Returning to where I began today, even in the present political environment, government can come up with creative solutions to problems and challenges if the leadership is determined enough and willing to share ideas and credit with partners in business and labor. Sometimes it takes a crisis, sometimes it just takes vision and leadership. Building on the model we created to solve the McCormick Place crisis of 2010, and when I say we, I'm talking about all of the people that I mentioned earlier. I strongly believe we are ready to move forward with the next step in ensuring that Chicago is the world's leading convention and trade show destination. And the McCormick Place becomes an even more powerful economic engine for recovery and growth. Thank you. Thank you.
City Club B, wave your question. We have one question so far. We got some early voting returns. Okay, here we go.
No storm here.
Crowd, Marty, they got to pick up the RPM. Okay, here we go. This is from Steve Schlickman, now at UIC. If money was not a limitation, see what happens when you become a professor? If money was not a limitation, how could transit be improved from McCormick Place?
Actually, this is a frequent question. One thing that people don't necessarily understand is that most of the attendees, most of the exhibitors and attendees at McCormick get to their hotel, which they may do on public transit, but then they take charter buses from wherever their hotel is to McCormick. This is not saying don't do more things for transit at McCormick, but most of them would not come directly to McCormick, nor do most of them leave directly from McCormick. They go back to their hotel and leave from there. So while I'm a big advocate of mass transit, as Steve knows, because he was the CEO of the RTA when I was the chairman, if money were unlimited, I have a lot of things I would spend money on in transit. That wouldn't necessarily be one of them. Sorry, Steve.
Okay, Lawrence Massal from the Civic Federation. Lawrence, raise your hand. There he is, right there. How does a Chicago casino, a DePaul basketball, or a Cubs upgrade fit into McCormick Place's future success or challenges? Wait, one easy one?
I'll answer two of the three. Is that okay?
Meatloaf.
A casino, if it's close but not right at McCormick Place, I think would be a draw. I think it will be a draw for the local economy. I think it would help with the trade show business. Just speaking for myself, and obviously the mayor and the governor will decide where it goes, if it goes anywhere. Speaking for myself, I wouldn't want it right across the street, but near. I think it would just be one more attraction. It would fit in with my mantra about needing a livelier neighborhood. It remains to be seen. It's no secret that DePaul wants to move back into the city. They've been talking to us. They've been talking to United Center. They've been, I'm sure, looking at options in closer to home. That would be one way, not the only way, but that would be one way in which you could deal with the need for a general session space, but I have no idea what they'll make their choice when they make it, and they'll announce it when they make it. As to the Cubs, I'm going to pass on that.
You can see why he's lasted so long. Okay. This one is from Ms. Hetty Ratner. Hetty, where are you? The rules are, Hetty, that you do on the official question form, not on joining the city club. So, I mean, okay, I mean, rules are rules. I'm giving you a mulligan now, but here we go. Jim, now that Navy Pier take two. Now that Navy Pier is a nonprofit and SBG, is the manager of McCormick, got to work on the grammar too, is the manager of McCormick Place, is there a commitment to reaching and exceeding minority and women's business goals in procurement for those institutions? And ledger, writing style too. Go ahead, you can figure out what you want.
I think the question is, does Navy Pier Inc. have basically the same goals that we have at MPA? And the answer is yes. That was included in the lease document, and they're working on that, and I'm sure we'll proceed in a usable fashion.
Graham Grady from, where are you, Graham? You asked the same question, a lot more legible, I might add, so we'll just, should have moved that around. Okay, Joyce Saxon, Board of Governors. Where are you, Joyce? Right over there. Any way to woo, that's the word, woo back the broadcasters, NAB convention?
Yeah, I think there is over time. They tend to get, it's partly a convention center issue. It's partly, they live and love in Los Angeles or New York, and so they.
The unions that drove us away.
Right. Well, the unions. I meant what I said. The unions, I think, are no longer an obstacle. So, and Don and I talk about this a lot. We used to have a lot of excuses. Some of them were real. Some of them maybe were more imagined. We don't have any excuses anymore. So we need to aggressively go after shows like that. And Don and his team are prepared to do that. So I think, yes, there's a chance. A lot of people, of course, a lot of cities compete for that business, but we'll certainly work on it. See, it's his birthday. He can't read so
well. I mean, well, yeah, you want to read that? Gene Mazzotti, where are you, Gene? Glenn. Penmanship will be now a requirement to ask questions. Glenn, this question's all over the place. We have strict rules here. Verbally, in 2 sentences, what's your question?
If we can use, if MPEA can work with Choose Chicago to increase the marketing budget that we use to market our facilities, what additional economic activity would be increased with every dollar increase in marketing?
Do you have we're working on that, and actually their marketing budget has gotten bigger, and they're in the midst of a study with World Business Chicago. Michael Sachs may talk some about that tomorrow. I don't know. Okay, so you got to come tomorrow to get.
If we hit the 50 million that the mayor has proposed, we'll go from about 13 billion revenue to 15 billion and add about 30,000 jobs.
Look, as an overall matter, Chicago investing money, not just at McCormick Place, but in the visitor industry, in the tourism side as well as the convention and trade show side, that can grow the economy of Chicago faster at a lower price than any other thing that we can do in terms of economic development. It is not an expensive thing compared with building a new steel plant or something, and I think Michael will talk about that.
How about a round of applause? Oh, we got gifts.